Russia plans to draft 1.2 million people into its army as part of the mobilization. Source: Meduza, quoting a source close to one of the Russian federal ministries. Details: the source noted that it was recommended to keep recruitment from regional centers to a minimum, adding, "They're going to rural areas where there's no media, no opposition, and more support." At the same time, Meduza''s source close to the Kremlin leadership reported that there are plans to mobilize up to 16,000 people in Moscow. This information was confirmed by a source close to one of the Russian federal ministries. An estimated 3,200 people are to be called up in St. Petersburg, according to a source close to the authorized representative of the Northwestern Federal District. However, Putin's press secretary Dmitry Peskov told the Kremlin-sponsored news outlet TASS that the claim that 1.2 million Russians are to be drafted in the partial mobilization is a lie. He also said previous statements that the Kremlin plans to draft up to 1 million people as part of the mobilization were untrue. Background: on the morning of the 21st of September, Vladimir Putin announced partial mobilization. Later it turned out that the decree on mobilization contains a secret paragraph which allows the Russian Ministry of Defense to draft up to 1 million people for the war. Protests were held in Russian cities on the 21st of September after partial mobilization was announced. Law enforcement agencies report that police arrested at least 1,176 people. Detained protesters were issued with mobilization notices in Moscow and Voronezh. Kremlin puppets in the occupied parts of Donetsk, Luhansk and Kherson oblasts and Melitopol have announced that they have started referendums on joining Russia. Details: the so-called DPR reported that voting is taking place throughout the territory controlled by the occupiers. Play video. The so-called LPR said that all the ballots have been delivered to polling stations, and that outdoor polling stations will start operating from 8 o'clock. In Melitopol, work has begun to visit citizens' homes to collect signatures. Background: we have launched English Twitter. Follow us. On the 19th of September, the Office of the President of Ukraine assured Russia and its allies in the occupied territories of Ukraine that sham referendums would not provide an opportunity to legalize the occupation of Ukrainian land. The North Atlantic Council issued a statement condemning plans to hold referendums in the occupied territories of Ukraine and promising to continue providing support to Kyiv. Josep Borrell, High Representative of the European Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, said that Russia had chosen the path of confrontation, announcing partial mobilization, supporting the organization of illegal referendums in the occupied territories of Ukraine and again threatening to use weapons of mass destruction. The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine supposes that Russians plan to supplement their formations and military units that are fighting in Ukraine on the first stage of the partial mobilization. Part of those forces could also be sent to supplement Russia's border guard. Source: Brigadier General Alexei Haromov, Deputy Head of Main Operational Directive of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, at a briefing on Friday. Quote, according to Russia's mobilization plans, approximately 300,000 people will be subject to conscription. Based on the preliminary evaluations, this military call-up will have at least 2 stages, or more. During the first stage, which will take place probably in a month or a month and a half, the enemy is going to supplement its formations and military units that are engaged in conducting military actions on the territory of Ukraine to the point where the staff is 100% complete. It is also possible that some of these forces will be sent to supplement the border service of the Federal Security Service of Russia, in order to free military personnel of the units of their armed forces that are involved in covering the border with our country. Details: according to Haromov, the biggest part of those subject to conscription are going to be sergeants, privates, as well as low-rank officers. This is the category that has suffered the most significant losses on the enemy's side, he explained. It is possible that the enemy will keep conducting its mobilization measures during the second stage, and create an appropriate number of combined army formations of operational and tactical levels, and an appropriate set of rocket and artillery units. At the same time, we understand that the enemy does not have professionals of certain specialties at the moment. And training them will take some time. Therefore, first of all, the enemy focused on forming combined army units, rocket and artillery units, the representative of the General Staff said. We have launched English Twitter. Follow us. Haromov also pointed out that, according to Ukrainian intelligence, the Kremlin's haste in announcing the partial mobilization is due to increased internal and external threats to Putin's regime. First and foremost, it is due to the inability of the current Russian government to reach the announced goals of a special military operation, and increasing support of Ukraine by Western countries, and our state's continued course towards NATO membership. It is also due to aggravation of social and economic problems in Russia, as well as strengthening of sanction pressure on the Russian Federation, Haromov stated. He also added that the armed forces of Ukraine were ready for any development of events. 300,000 men, or whatever, Ukraine is going to win, he stressed. The German parliament was unable to vote for the proposal of the CDU-CSU opposition bloc to directly supply tanks and other armored vehicles to Ukraine. According to NTV, bring to the vote a voluntary document called Protection of Peace and Freedom in Europe, cooperating with Ukraine, which is now using services. The document contains a proposal for a mandatory permit for the export to Ukraine of battle tanks and transport armored vehicles from the stocks of German industry. In addition, he observes the caution associated with heavy use. However, the deputies of the coalition and the deputies of the left faction, with their votes, prevented the immediate adoption of decisions in the parliament. Instead, the CDU-CSU proposal was referred to the Foreign Affairs Committee for discussion, which would significantly delay decisions. Meanwhile, during the discussion, some deputies of the legal coalition supported the initiative of the opposition. The deputy from the Free Democrats, Marie-Agnes Strack-Zimmermann, delivers reliable tanks. Germany must transfer its part of the Fuchs armored personnel carriers and Marder infantry fighting vehicles. And if such a situation happened, then perhaps the Leopard battle tank, said Strack-Zimmermann. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz and German Defense Minister Christine Lambrecht are of the opinion that Ukraine does not need to supply tanks. On Monday, the chairman of the Bundestag's Defense Committee, Marie-Agnes Strack-Zimmermann, said that Germany needs to get out of the so-called circular situations of severe crisis and start generating it directly. We must find the courage to come out that circular deliveries work the way we can find ourselves, and, accordingly, we must turn to direct deliveries instead, Strack-Zimmermann explained her position at the time. And on September 22, President Volodymyr Zelensky commented on the situation with the German environment for Ukraine. The president noted that the tanks will not put an end to the war. Armored vehicles for us are a matter of survival for Ukrainians. These are not only tanks, these are also anti-tank grenade launchers, Matadors. These are armored vehicles that are in Germany, which we really want and ask Scholz, Zelensky said.